Welcome to Wednesday Wanderings. My name is Mark Long, rector of the parish of St Andrew in Newlands, Cape Town. There haven't been too many wanderings in recent times, largely that life has picked up in the in-person space again, but also I have had some leave in the early part of December. And now we're heading into Christmas, and I thought it would be a good opportunity just to reconnect again. In the Eucharist readings this morning, our psalm really struck me, Psalm 113, and it begins with the words, "Praise the Lord," and it ends with the words, "Praise the Lord." And in between, there's an acknowledgement of the psalmist's experience of God's goodness in their life. And it just struck me that as 2021 draws to an end, it's been a tough year. It's been easier, I think, than 2020 in that we've known at least or grown to learn how to deal more fully with the virus in our lives and its impact. But yeah, there's been a lot happening, and it's remained pressured, and the need to be agile and the need to cope with change at very short notice has remained part of our experience this year. With that ongoing anxiety, I think about the impact or potential impact of the virus on for instance, on myself, but also on others around me, and I'm aware of how we're dealing with something that's invisible that has such huge impact when it actually infects our lives. So I'm aware that there's been a real sense of just not always knowing which way to turn or what's happening next. And the sense of isolation that many of us experienced last year with the severe lockdowns, but also isolation just in not wanting to pass this virus on to others and being that much more careful about our social interactions, I think has impacted for many of us. I do listen around and aware that some of my neighbors are probably less careful on that level than I am. And aware that I tend to perhaps be overly cautious on the safety level. But whichever way it's fallen for you, I think we are just experiencing that, or we have experienced that sense of disconnection, either from anxiety or maybe even fear, or just that life is so different and we're learning to negotiate our way through it. So in the midst of all of that, to just hear these wonderful words, praise the Lord, really stood out for me. And just a reminder that in terms of our faith, we really do hold to the fact that God is present. God's present even when he seems not to be present. And I remember speaking a while ago in one of my sermons, and I can't remember where I actually got the idea from, but that presence is kind of on a timeline. So there's a sense where we feel God's presence to be present. And then as you move along the continuum, you reach the other end where God's presence is felt to be absent, although it's present. And there's all that space in between. But as people of faith, seeking to hold that God, no matter what my intrinsic experience may be or feel like, nonetheless, God is always there. As that somewhat probably now become somewhat trite poem of Footprints in the Sand, where there's a space where one sort of is aware, looking back at the tracks in the sand, that God has been walking with one. Another point, just seeing one set and thinking that God has abandoned us, but recognizing eventually that in fact those are God's footprints, not our own, and that God has been carrying us in that. And of course, there's an addition to that, which is a real mess in the sand at one point. And the question is, God, what happened here? And God saying, that's where we dance together. So my prayer is that as we end 2021, we begin to find new opportunity to dance together with each other and with God, and to rejoice despite the ongoing struggles of life. One of the realities is that life is difficult. And I think if we accept that as the norm, then those points where life is easy, we can really celebrate that. And part of it really is just, I think for me, and we talk a lot about mental health, but it's in my head, a lot of it. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And there is a level of choice. We can choose to be overcome by everything around us, or we can choose to actually embrace life in a more positive way. And again, I realize it's not that simple. But just drawing on the psalmist, and the psalmist touching in with a reading from 1 Samuel this morning about Samuel's birth and Hannah's deep bereft that she was barren for a long time, and the joy that Samuel's birth brought to her. We also, in tonight's evening prayer, there is the Magnificat. That's one of the readings, not just part of the evening prayer service. And again, a reminder there of Mary's visit to Elizabeth. Elizabeth also, who'd been barren for so long. And as Mary visits the child in Elizabeth's womb, John rejoices in that visit. And of course, Mary carrying Jesus. But the joy for Hannah, the joy for Elizabeth, of in the darkness of their lives, in the context of the society and the expectations of society in the times that they lived, that they'd really struggled. And suddenly here is this wonderful gift of life that not only touches who they are, but allows them to embrace and be welcomed into the society that they belong to in a new way. So as we head into Christmas, let's not pretend that life has been easy, but let us look for the goodness, and let us celebrate that goodness, and let us allow the love of God to hold us in new and special ways. And whatever 22 holds, and it's not promising to be necessarily any easier than 2021, but whatever it does hold, to trust that God is walking with us, to trust in the wonderful sign that Jesus is of new life and new hope for us and for the world in which we live, and to celebrate that together. So just to say a very blessed Christmas to you all, and a very happy new year. And my prayer is that 2022 will be one in which we will remain resilient and we will blossom beyond where we have been in the last while. I'm on leave again immediately after New Year or Christmas. And so we'll touch in again the week of the 10th of January. But have a wonderful Christmas, and God bless you all.